Welcome, grade 9 students of St. Paul American School Clark, to this explainer. Today we're unpacking exactly how point of view, traits, and motivation actually change the stories we read. You know, as you prep for success way beyond the classroom, developing critical thinking is absolutely essential. And honestly, literature is one of the best training grounds for that. We're going to see how a story really isn't just about what happens. It's fundamentally about who is telling it and what hidden forces are driving them. Okay, here's our agenda for today. We'll start with today's objective, dive into explaining point of view, explore traits and motivation, walk through a guided analysis model, do a quick misconception and concept check, and finish it all off with a final recap. Section 1. Today's objective, what we will learn and analyze. We are keeping our focus laser sharp today on two very specific, powerful literary tools. By the end of this explainer, you will confidently be able to identify and analyze point of view and analyze character traits and motivation. These are literally the fundamental building blocks of narrative analysis. Getting a solid grip on these will completely transform how you read any text in your English 9 curriculum. Section 2. Explaining point of view. Who is holding the camera? Let's kick things off with point of view. The best way to think about it is like a camera in a movie. It's the narrative relationship between the storyteller, the character's experience, and what information you, the reader, actually get to access. It dictates exactly how close we're allowed to get to the action. Now, what's really fascinating here is how these 5 main types break down. Notice how third-person pronouns, he, she, they, can actually give you 3 completely different levels of access into a character's mind. You've got third-person limited, where you're trapped inside just one character's head at a time. Then there's third-person omniscient, where the narrator is like this all-knowing presence that can jump into multiple minds to give us a much wider context. And finally, third-person objective, where the narrator only gives us observable action and dialogue with 0 direct access to private thoughts. It's a great reminder that point of view is so much more than just memorizing a list of pronouns.
Section 3. Traits and motivation, the forces that shape a character.
Now let's move on to traits and motivation. Why? Because 2 characters can stand in the exact same rainstorm and experience completely different stories. One character sees ruined shoes and a miserable day, while the other sees the first rain after a long drought and just stops to smile. The scene hasn't changed at all, right? The character has. The crucial point here is that a character's traits aren't just random personality quirks. They are built from very specific forces. Things like their past successes or failures, their deepest fears and blind spots, or even just their current desires. These forces act like a filter, and they totally fuel the character's motivation in any given scene. This right here is what makes fiction feel so alive. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how traits drive motivation. Imagine a school announces a sudden change in schedule. A character with confident traits might see this event as a really rewarding opportunity. They desire recognition and adaptability. Meanwhile, a character with anxious traits might view the exact same event as a terrifying threat because their deepest fear is unpredictability or maybe public embarrassment. The event is 100% identical, but their internal traits completely rewrite their emotional reality and, ultimately, their motivation.
Section 4. Guided analysis model, combining POV and traits.
Let's look at an analysis model and see what happens when we combine point of view with character traits in a single practical scenario. Check out this comparison of a character achieving a major victory. On the left, the confident first-person point of view makes the success feel entirely expected. We are right there in the character's head, feeling their triumph using that pronoun I. But over on the right, the third-person limited point of view filters the exact same win through a wounded trait. By focusing on the character's internal doubt about past criticism, their motivation shifts from celebrating a win to harboring resentment. The combination of POV and traits turns what should be a simple moment of victory into something way more complicated. Section 5. Misconception and concept check. Clearing up the confusion. We need to address a massive misconception that trips up so many students when they're analyzing literature, and that's confusing point of view with perspective. They are closely related, sure, but they are absolutely not interchangeable. Think of it this way. Point of view chooses the camera window. It determines who tells the story and whose thoughts we can access. But perspective is the emotional lens, determining what the character actually sees through that window. Perspective is how a narrator interprets what happens based on their own unique history, their fears, and their beliefs. To prove this, let's consider a character observing their hometown.
Both Scene A and Scene B use the exact same third-person limited point of view. The camera is locked on our central character in both. But in Scene A, their motivation is a restless desire to escape, so they only notice decay and stagnation, the peeling paint, the closed doors. To them, the town is a trap. Now in Scene B, years later, their motivation is nostalgia and regret. Suddenly, that exact same peeling paint feels stubborn and resilient, and the town feels like a lost home. The point of view stayed completely identical, but because the characters' traits and motivations evolved, their perspective completely rewrote the scene.
Let's test your understanding with a really quick formative check. Listen to this scenario. A passage describes a character folding a paper, setting it down, and asking a question aloud. Think about our camera window and our access. Since we can only observe the character's physical actions and listen to their dialogue, but we have absolutely zero access to their private inner thoughts, what point of view are we looking at here? I'll give you a second to think about it. If you guessed third-person objective, you nailed it. We could observe the behavior, but the internal feelings remained entirely hidden. All right, moving on to Section 6. Final recap, what you need to remember. Let's wrap up this explainer with a concise recap of our required concepts so you are fully ready for your English 9 assignments. To summarize, mastering these concepts means recognizing that who is telling the story, the point of view, and what drives their internal traits and motivations completely dictate the meaning you take away as a reader. Every single time you read a text, the author is making deliberate choices to control intimacy, suspense, and emotional impact by combining these specific elements. So I want to leave you with this final thought for your next reading assignment. Are you just passively accepting what the narrator tells you, or are you actively looking for the hidden traits and motivations steering the camera? The next time you open a book, figure out who is holding the camera and ask yourself, what might they be missing? Happy reading grade 9, and I'll see you in the next explainer.